He saw things no ordinary man could see. He commanded miracles no army could stop. And when enemies surrounded Israel, heaven itself surrounded him. From rivers splitting apart to fiery armies hidden in the clouds, get ready, grab your popcorns, and watch the legendary story of Elisha. Israel no longer slept in peace beneath the darkening skies. Beyond the hills, enemy fires burned closer with every passing night. Inside the palaces, fear spread faster than wisdom ever could. Kings argued through the night while whispers of judgment haunted the throne rooms. Across Israel, one name returned again and again through fearful whispers. Elijah walked the wilderness like a prophet, followed by storms and heavenly fire. Some feared Elijah more than armies or kings themselves. Wherever the prophet walked, idols shattered and silence swallowed entire cities. But even prophets grow weary beneath the weight of heaven. Far from the kingdoms, Elijah walked alone toward the final road awaiting him. In a distant field, Elisha worked quietly beside 12 powerful oxen. He did not know destiny was already walking through the storm toward him. Then Elijah appeared through the blowing dust without warning or explanation. Even the workers fell silent as the atmosphere itself suddenly changed. Without speaking, Elijah placed his mantle across Elisha's shoulders. In one silent moment, the farmer's ordinary life disappeared forever. Elisha looked into Elijah's eyes and saw something terrifyingly heavy. The old prophet carried sorrow, judgment, power, and heaven itself within him. Then Elijah simply turned and walked away into the storm. Elisha already knew the old life behind him would never feel whole again. Elisha hurried home for one final goodbye before following the prophet. His family saw immediately that something inside him had already changed forever. The farewell carried sorrow, fear, love, and destiny all at once. When Elisha stepped outside again, home no longer felt like home. Villagers watched Elijah and Elisha disappear into the night together. Some whispered the farmer had just walked willingly into the storm itself. Years passed beside Elijah, on lonely roads filled with fire and fear. Elisha learned that prophets survived through loyalty. Then strange whispers spread through Israel's prophetic circles by sunrise. Everyone feared Elijah would be taken away before the day finally ended. Beneath darkening skies, Elijah and Elisha continued toward Bethel together. Even the prophets upon the walls feared heaven was moving beside them. Inside Bethel, nervous prophets surrounded Elisha with trembling warnings. Every voice repeated the same terrible truth waiting at the edge of day. Elisha answered sharply, though fear already tore through his heart. He knew the warnings were true, but refused to speak them aloud.
Stay here, Elisha.
Again, Elijah tested him beside the lonely, storm-filled road. But Elisha refused to leave the prophet no matter where destiny led.
I will follow you.
The farther they traveled, the stranger the world around them became. Even the wind carried the pressure of something unseen approaching from heaven. At Jericho, prophets gathered silently like witnesses awaiting an impossible event.
It is time.
Every face carried fear as Elijah walked toward the final road ahead.
The day is perilous.
Once more, the prophets warned Elisha about the coming separation.
Stop speaking about it.
By now, grief and loyalty burned inside him stronger than fear itself.
Stay behind.
For the final time, Elijah told Elisha to remain behind.
Never leave you.
Yet Elisha swore he would follow the prophet until the very end. Then the Jordan River appeared beneath violent, supernatural storm clouds. The impossible waters roared like a living wall before both prophets. 50 prophets watched from distant hills in fearful silence. Elijah walked calmly toward the raging river, without hesitation or fear. The old prophet lifted his mantle high into the heavens. Storm winds screamed across the valley as heaven prepared to answer him. Suddenly, the Jordan River exploded apart before their eyes. Towering walls of water rose upward like something from another world.
What happens?
As they crossed the impossible riverbed, Elisha finally understood the truth. Elijah was preparing to leave this world forever beneath the storm-filled heavens. Beyond the river, Elijah stopped walking and faced his student quietly. The old prophet looked at Elisha like he was weighing the future itself. With trembling voice, Elisha revealed the impossible desire hidden inside him. He asked for a double portion of Elijah's spirit before the end arrived. Even Elijah looked shaken after hearing such a dangerous request. Some burdens carried the weight of heaven and could never be given lightly. Then Elijah revealed the terrifying condition for receiving the blessing. Elisha would need to witness the moment heaven carried the prophet away. Without warning, the storm above them split apart violently. Heavenly fire burst through the clouds as the wilderness trembled beneath their feet. A blazing chariot descended from heaven, pulled by horses of living fire. The air itself struggled to contain the terrifying power surrounding it. The chariot separated Elijah and Elisha in an explosion of heavenly fire. Before Elisha could reach him, the prophet rose into the whirlwind above. Elisha collapsed in grief as Elijah vanished beyond the storm forever. Suddenly, the wilderness felt unbearably empty and silent around him. Then Elijah's mantle drifted slowly downward through smoke and embers. The falling cloth became proof that the prophet was truly gone forever. Elisha lifted the mantle carefully from the empty wilderness ground. It no longer felt like cloth, but responsibility, loneliness, and terrifying power. Yet one frightening question still haunted Elisha beside the river. Had Elijah's spirit truly remained, or had heaven abandoned him completely? The Jordan still roared like an impossible wall before the young prophet. Now Elijah was gone, and Elisha stood completely alone against the storm. With desperate faith, Elisha struck the river using Elijah's mantle. His voice echoed through the valley, demanding heaven answer him once again. For one terrible moment, absolutely nothing happened beside the roaring waters. Fear wrapped tightly around Elisha's heart as silence filled the valley. Then the Jordan River exploded apart exactly as it had before. The watching prophets realized Elijah's spirit truly rested upon Elisha now. Elisha crossed through the impossible river, while prophets bowed in fear. From that moment, nobody saw him merely as Elijah's servant anymore. Across Israel, whispers about Elisha spread faster than the storms themselves. People feared the prophet carried the unseen power of heaven upon him. But in Bethel, reckless young men mocked the prophet openly. They laughed loudly while nervous villagers stepped away from the growing tension. The insults became crueler as the youths followed Elisha through the streets. Their laughter echoed through Bethel, while fear quietly spread among the people. Then Elisha turned and faced the mocking crowd in silence. The moment they saw his eyes, the laughter weakened into fear. Elisha spoke a curse calmly in the name of the Lord. Immediately, the nearby forest fell into an unnatural and terrifying silence. Then 2 massive bears burst violently from the dark forest. Chaos exploded through the streets as the mocking crowd fled in terror. After that day, fear followed Elisha's name across all Israel. People no longer spoke of the prophet with curiosity, but trembling caution. Soon, kings began seeking Elisha whenever war threatened the kingdom. Enemy armies surrounded Israel while panic spread once more through the palace. The king demanded Elisha immediately as fear consumed the royal court. No army or fortress seemed powerful enough to save Israel anymore. But Elisha already knew every enemy trap before armies even marched.
Set the traps here.
Again and again, Israel escaped disasters waiting hidden within the hills. The king of Aram became furious as every ambush mysteriously failed. Suspicion poisoned the royal war chamber like smoke filling the palace. At last, a servant revealed the truth nobody wished to hear. Elisha somehow knew even the king's secret words spoken behind closed doors. The king of Aram decided the prophet must be hunted down personally. Massive armies prepared through the night beneath storm-darkened skies. Before sunrise, enemy horses and chariots completely surrounded Elisha's
There's
city.
no way out.
The hills disappeared beneath soldiers, steel, and endless flickering torchlight. At dawn, Elisha's servant stepped outside and froze in absolute terror. Every mountain surrounding the city was covered with enemy armies. The terrified servant
Master,
rushed
what are we
inside
going
while
to do?
war horns echoed outside the walls.
Do not be afraid.
Yet Elisha remained completely calm beside the flickering morning fire. The prophet looked calmly at the servant, trembling with fear. Elisha promised greater forces stood beside them than against them. Still, the servant could only see the endless
There's an
enemy armies
a
outside.
real army.
Fear overwhelmed him as the city waited helplessly beneath the siege. Then Elisha prayed not for victory or escape, but for sight. The atmosphere inside the room changed as heaven quietly drew near. Suddenly, the servant's eyes widened with horror and overwhelming awe. The mountains surrounding the city were no longer empty beneath the storm. Every hill burned with heavenly horses and chariots of living fire.
They're full of
Invisible armies surrounded Elisha like a blazing wall from heaven itself. At last, the servant understood the terrifying truth protecting the prophet. The enemy armies below were nothing beside heaven's unseen forces above. Then Elisha walked directly toward the enemy army, completely alone. While soldiers prepared for battle, the prophet carried only calmness and faith. Instead of surrendering, Elisha lifted his hand toward the enemy forces.
Strike them
The
with
prophet
blindness.
prayed quietly, and supernatural blindness swept across the battlefield.
Regroup.
Instant confusion erupted as soldiers stumbled blindly through the chaos. Horses panicked, chariots crashed, and fear spread through the entire valley.
You are in the wrong.
Then Elisha calmly guided the blinded army like helpless lost travelers. The soldiers followed unknowingly while confusion consumed their commanders completely. Without realizing it, the enemy army entered Israel's capital city itself. Guards upon the walls stared in disbelief at the impossible sight below.
Lord,
Once the enemy army stood trapped inside the city walls, Elisha prayed again. Slowly, the supernatural blindness began fading from the terrified soldiers' eyes. The enemy soldiers opened their eyes and discovered they were surrounded. Panic exploded through the trapped army inside the heart of Israel. The king of Israel rushed forward, eager for complete victory. To him, the helpless enemy army looked like an easy slaughter. But Elisha answered with mercy, instead of bloodshed and revenge.
then let them return to
The enemy soldiers were fed, released, and sent home in peace. Years later, stories about Elisha spread far beyond Israel's borders.
defeat this.
In Aram lived Naaman, a feared commander secretly dying from leprosy. Inside Naaman's home, a captured servant girl quietly offered hope. She spoke of a prophet in Israel who could heal impossible sickness. Desperate for healing, Naaman traveled toward Israel with treasures and soldiers. The mighty commander expected power, spectacle, and a legendary miracle. But when Naaman arrived, Elisha never even stepped outside to greet him. The proud commander waited angrily before the prophet's simple little house.
Wash in the Jordan.
Instead of ceremony, only a servant delivered Elisha's strange
This
instruction.
is an insult.
Naaman was told to wash 7 times within the Jordan River. Fury exploded inside Naaman as pride battled desperation within his heart. The mighty commander could not understand such a humiliating command. Then, one humble servant spoke carefully beside the halted caravan. His simple words pierced deeper than the prophet's command itself. At last, Naaman humbled himself
This is foolish.
and entered the muddy Jordan waters. Again and again he dipped beneath the river while nothing seemed different. On the 7th time,
did the wind
Naaman disappeared completely beneath the silent water. Even the wind stopped moving as everyone waited in fearful suspense. Then Naaman rose from the river, completely healed before everyone. The leprosy was gone, and his skin looked clean like a child's. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Naaman fell to his knees beside the river. The proud commander finally declared the God of Israel alone was real. But while Naaman departed transformed, greed quietly poisoned another heart nearby. Elisha's servant Gehazi watched the treasures disappear with restless eyes. Secretly, Gehazi chased
master
after Naaman
changed his mind.
and lied in Elisha's name.
Take these gifts.
The commander generously handed over silver and garments without suspicion. Nothing remained hidden from Elisha's terrifying prophetic sight. Judgment fell instantly as Gehazi's skin turned pale with leprosy. And so the legend of Elisha spread across nations and kingdoms. He became the prophet who carried the terrifying unseen power of heaven itself.